because speaking of MVPs, Brett, that is the conversation of should Lamar be going for his MV3, his third MVP in back-to-back in the National Football League. But today on First Take, there was another player in mind specifically, and Stephen A. actually thinks Lamar should not be the front runner for MVP. So we'll play that clip for you, and then we'll react on the other side.
If the season ended today, Lamar Jackson would be the MVP.
I completely disagree with you. I think you're off your rocker on this one. First of all, for about 3 of those games, Derrick Henry could have been the MVP. The way he was running the damn football, that certainly helped Lamar Jackson immensely. Then we got to take into account that Baltimore did start off the season 0-2, and they've won 5 straight. Well, last time I checked, the Detroit Lions only have 1 loss on the season. They're 5-1 right now. Obviously, they played one less game than the Baltimore Ravens. Let's take into account Jared Goff. The last 3 games, a passer rating of 140 or better. The last 3 games, you look at some of these numbers right here, right now. I'm just has completed 58 of 68 passes, all right, for 887 yards, 7 touchdown passes, 1 receiving touchdown, 0 turnovers in those last 3 games as well. When you see what Detroit is doing, when you see how he's leading the way, when you see that he's completing 73% of his passes on the season, the only loss they had was the second week of the season in Tampa Bay. Since then, they've won about 4 straight their damn selves. I'm looking at Jared Goff right now, the way that he looks, combined with the way that they're playing. Right now, to me, he looks like a league MVP. I would put him ahead of Lamar Jackson at this particular juncture.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with
Saturday, tell that man he out his mind.
No.
Hey, so, look, let's start with this, Brad, and then I'll go to you.
Yeah.
I love that Jared Goff is getting love. That dude has played extremely well. The Lions are a wagon themselves. And Jared Goff, a guy that was casted off. And Brad, maybe you've heard me kind of talk about it. We mentioned with Baker Mayfield. I like those stories where people kind of count you out. And quite frankly, people don't think Jared Goff could be the Lions quarterback for the future. Amazing season so far. Now let me switch, and having said that, it's not Jared Goff. It's not Jared Goff at the top. And as great as he's been, I think one part that jumps out to me, saying that Lamar and the Ravens are relying on Derrick Henry in the run game. What do the Detroit Lions like to do the best, Brad? They like to run the damn ball with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, and Dan Campbell's going, I'm going to punch you in the mouth. That's our team's philosophy. And then their play action game sets everything up. And Jared Goff has been great. He has. And I'll throw some stats out there, Brad, but the comparisons there, while I understand, it's just not close for a lot of the reasons what Lamar Jackson continues to do on the football field.
It really isn't. And we can throw all this. First of all, the stats are very comparative. If you want to really go after the last 3 weeks, as far as QBR and touchdowns, Lamar Jackson throwing more touchdowns for one. But we really want to compare them as an entire season. Jared Goff and Lamar Jackson are comparative when it comes to their passing. But what really bothers me is why a lot of folks like Stephen A. Smith and some of these larger media outlets don't include the entire offense that Lamar Jackson produces. So I'm talking the rushing attack plus rushing touchdowns, because they should count. That goes towards being the most valuable player. And so not only that, but if you want to take all of that out, take all the stats out. What I saw last night from Lamar Jackson that gave me that's my MVP type of moment was Lamar Jackson being the lead back here, or the lead blocker.
Toss.
Like the lead blocker right here, the way that he got upfield, stiffed arm a guy and then becomes a lead blocker to open it up for Derrick Henry. Jared Goff's not doing that shit. No way. No way. So, like, to me, being an MVP, if you're going to be trying to determine who's the MVP so far this year, it's more than just a couple of stats through 3 games. It's the whole season for one so far cumulatively, and it's stuff like that you're not getting out of any other player other than Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, and so far, Brad, Lamar Jackson now in the last few weeks trying to even go back to this whole in the last few weeks. I'm just losing track of the opponents here for a second. Lamar has led 2 comeback victories where they've trailed by 10 or more points to the narrative that the Ravens can't play from behind. Look, they erased that very quickly. Now I will say, when Mike Evans, that sequence of Evans dropping the ball, getting hurt, and the interception changed the complete complexion of the game. Having said that, Lamar and the offense didn't blink. They went back out there and they kept working, and then they just became the juggernaut, unstoppable force. And look, Jared Goff, I'm a huge Goff fan, but going to the stats right now, in one less game, Goff has 2 more interceptions. He's got 4, and he's got 10 touchdowns. Now, he could pass Lamar in passing yards. If the games were aligned, he's only 200 passing yards behind Lamar. But you're right. The discrepancy in running, I know Jared Goff's known for being fleet-footed, right? I guess he probably runs a faster 40 than I do. I'm not known for my speed either, Brad. Goff's got 13 carries for 17 yards. Lamar Jackson has 455 rushing yards so far on the season. And on top of it, has 15 passing touchdowns to 2 interceptions. So if we're going by numbers, it's not comparable. If you're going by what he's done to really take this offense to a different level, Derrick Henry's been a huge part of that. But Lamar Jackson is what makes everything go. In Detroit still, the thing that makes Detroit go is they have to be able to run the football. If they can't run it with their backs, Goff is put in some uncomfortable situations. And
their defense has to show up. Their defense has to show up.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson has Lamar Jackson has shown us, and that offense has shown us that they can outpace the defensive weaknesses up to this point. Obviously, that's going to be really tough to do in the playoffs. But right now, Lamar Jackson and that offense has shown us that they can go toe-to-toe with anybody despite the weaknesses in the defense. Whereas it's a little bit different story over there in Detroit.
Yeah, and also I love what Detroit's doing. Taking out what Baltimore, hoping in the roots to Baltimore. My favorite team to probably watch, the 2 favorite are in the NFC. I love watching Detroit, and I love watching what the Commanders are doing. But Detroit, they want to smash mouth, hit you every single time. They have a great play action game. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a dog. They embody everything you want. But you're right, Brad. The Baltimore Ravens, which again, the positive is this offense is firing on all cylinders. Defensively, because they've had so many leads, things have gotten a little bit dicey towards the end. And even last night, it was a little bit of a heart racing. Dude, my heart was racing for fantasy purposes. I needed to keep Baker below 28.7.
Yeah.
And I almost shit a brick when he finished with 27. And I would have just put some anchors on my legs and just jumped right into the harbor if that happened. But in all seriousness, Lamar Jackson, people just don't want to admit it. It's great stories around the NFL, but the best player right now in the NFL, numbers-wise and play on the field, it's Lamar Jackson, and there really isn't a close gap to that. But I do love what Jared Goff's doing.
Yeah, and that's not to take away from what Jared Goff is doing at all. It's just that, and we've talked about this as far as comparing Lamar to Mahomes, where Mahomes is in a category of his own. Lamar's also in a category of his own when compared to the rest of the league. So I see that Joe is asking making a comment here about the Lions need a run game instead of the Ravens. Ravens haven't proved they can win without being able to run. I would make the argument that the Bengals game this year was the exception there. Derrick Henry wasn't really a factor until late into the fourth quarter. The Bengals had done a really good job up to that point and really kind of holding him, I think, to 30 yards. So there was a lot of the pass game really took over in that game in Cincinnati. So that would be my only rebuttal to that.
Well, Joe, the other part, I'll actually argue this. The Ravens were losing 10-0. Derrick Henry had the least amount of carries he's had all game in the first half last night against Tampa Bay. So when I look at this, then the Ravens got ahead. And when they got ahead, they're going, hey, big fella, your time to shine. It's like in The Longest Yard, Brucey's time to shine. Hey, Derek, your time to shine here. We got the lead in the second half. go do your thing. But early on, the Ravens had to. And I'll make the argument too, Joe, with anybody. The reason most teams win is they have to run the football. Hell, if the Chiefs couldn't run the ball right now, they're not 6-0.
No.
Like Kareem Hunt and that offensive line and Mahomes, they are running the football and playing defense. So when you're looking around the NFL, it's you could say the 49ers too. They can't run the ball efficiently. They're in trouble. They couldn't run the ball very well against Kansas City. They were in trouble. Granted, they had some injuries on their skill position, but I think for every team, I think a championship caliber team, you have to run the football.
Yeah.
Rarely are we going to see a team that can't, that's going to win the big game. So that's where we're at there, Joe. And by the way, I always love the Joe S. I love the Bobby Boucher. It's phenomenal.